This episode of Artistic Mission is brought to you by Open Door Studios, featuring the art, design, and consultation work of award-winning and internationally exhibited artist Dan Jabbour. Whether you want show posters that tell them where to go or business cards that say you've arrived, we specialize in memorable results. For more information, visit odstl.com. Welcome to Season 2 of Artistic Mission, where we continue our exploration of the visual arts in a non-visual format. A lot has happened since the final episode of Season 1 a few months ago. Without going into too much detail, your fearless host has moved and downsized and undergone a lot of personal growth and change. Luckily, I've managed to keep the show alive and accessible. Whenever it's time to come up with cash to keep the episodes hosted, I've so far been able to do that. If you'd like to help, stick around until the end credits, and I'll tell you what you can do to make sure the show can continue. This episode, I'll be talking with Zack Smithey. Zack is well known for his various art-related endeavors in the St. Louis area, and has even gotten national media attention for things that he's built. I was fortunate enough to run into him at an art opening a few weeks ago, and he was gracious enough to set aside some time to speak with me in his studio. The sound quality has a few issues, mostly due to the wind and some large passing trucks, but I don't think it takes away too much, as it adds to the ambience. Anyway, I think that's enough of an introduction. It's good to be back. So without further ado, Zack Smithey. Every artist has a different way of describing themselves. What do you call yourself?
Out of everything that I do, my art is very diverse. I consider myself a process artist. And sometimes I just use the label of creator of things because sometimes I'm building furniture or shipping container homes or you name it. I'm always building things or making things. Primarily, I'm just an artist. I don't like to split hairs on it.
You started out as a teacher, right?
Yeah, well, I started out teaching to help finance art. So I was always an artist. I've been making art since before kindergarten and at a high volume rate the whole time. So I always considered myself an artist, even before I knew that artist was a career option.
What do you feel like you got from teaching? Did that help or hinder your progress at all?
It set me on a path to get where I am today. And I think maybe that's something that has helped my long-term success is planning for the future and trying to figure out what do I have to do right now in order to get where I want to be in a few years. And I did not want to take a job that wasn't in the field of art. So as soon as I graduated with my BFA, I thought, well, I've got 6 months to find a job and start paying these student loans. But I still wasn't clear in my artistic direction enough to just go full time with the art. So I thought, well, I'll just go get my master's in education and start teaching. And by the end of the summer, by the end of taking my first 2 education classes, I'd already landed a job teaching at a high school. Taught at Francis Howell North High School for 7 years. And I wanted to be financially secure so I could focus on my art 100%. I know that teaching doesn't make a ton of money, but when you have the security of a teaching job, banks will give you a loan. So I used the teaching job and the credit that came with it to purchase my first home, which was a foreclosure, a house built in 1880. And then I spent the next year and a half renovating that house. I renovated it, lived in it for a few years, and then sold it for $100,000 more than what I bought it for. Some of that money went into renovating it, but it set me on a course to being financially stable so that I could really focus on my art.
I would imagine, though, too, having the summers off helps and gives you more time to work on your stuff.
It would if I didn't fill that time with other activities. I always consider myself a full-time professional artist because I put that amount of time into it. even when I had other full-time jobs. So it's like I'd get off my job, go home, let the dogs out, go straight to the studio, work until 10 or 11 at night, go straight to bed, get up and do it again. I knew if I wanted to be a professional, I had to act like I already was a full-time professional. And having the summers off, I was either landscaping, building retaining walls for people, or I painted the shows at the Muni for 5 years in the Scenic Artists Union. So that was 2005 to 2011. Painting the sets at the Muni really upped my painting game because of the color theory involved in that type of large-scale painting. Like the teaching, I was teaching art. So at least I was still working in the field of art.
I've heard a lot of people say that, by teaching, it kind of forces you to reorganize your own thoughts. And by doing that, it helps you to better understand what it is that you're actually doing yourself.
It does. When I taught, I never had the students crack open the book. I read the book, and I included all of the elements and principles of art and the knowledge into the art that they were creating. So I had to know everything, not just, I didn't want to have to refer to the book in order to teach. So I was really on my game so that I could convey that information to them seamlessly. And in doing so, it did, like what you said, it sharpened my direction and what did I want to get out of my art. Specifically, I think design-wise, when you're continually going over the principles of art, the principles of design, the elements of art, it really makes you think, like, why am I painting this object? What am I trying to achieve here? How do I want to arrange these elements?
I notice a lot of times, too, in your work especially, like you use a lot of found objects and recycled things. Do you think some of that has its origins in teaching just because you're so strapped to, especially the art departments being really strapped for resources?
Yes. Yes. That and always being strapped for cash and renovating houses, my own houses. I didn't want to just go to the store and spend money on average things that everybody has. I wanted to go to a resale shop or a salvage yard and find something and turn it into something that it wasn't before. And in doing so, like this whole repurposing and finding things that I could use for other purposes, it just, yeah, it's all encompassing.
And what got you out of teaching?
When teaching got in the way of my art. So the last 2 of the 7 years, I was making the transition of my art is now making more money than my teaching, and I can no longer afford to waste time in the classroom being away from the studio. And that was a part of spending a full amount of time at the studio every single night and weekends in order to tip the scales in favor of art, so I didn't have to have that safety net of teaching. So teaching, it was a chapter in my life. It served its purpose. It was fun. It was rewarding, but that chapter is over.
You work in a lot of different medias. What would you say are the pros and cons?
Start with the cons of working in many different mediums is that reputable galleries, they're already dealing with many different artists. So when they have an artist, they want to be able to depend on that artist to be stable and to have a certain style and have a lot of inventory in that style in case they have a buyer who likes the style of that artist. Well, dealing with me is like dealing with a dozen different artists working in a dozen different styles. Lucky for me, I work really fast. I work non-stop, so I do have enough inventory in each body of work. It's not as if I'm ADD about my work. I do bounce around, but I give each series a sufficient amount of thought and time. It's not as if I'm just doing one and done. The pros are that I've been able to continually sell lots of work in the St. Louis market for the past 15 years because I'm always evolving. If I was still doing the same thing that people really latched onto 15 years later, I think interest would have died off. And, I could have kept selling some of those earlier bodies of work, but as soon as it went stale in the St. Louis market, I would have to reach beyond and go to other cities where it's still new. But for me, personally, not just the audience, I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I don't want to be that artist that just does that thing
right
for their whole lives. I mean, I would drive myself crazy if I had to do the same type of art for the next 70 years.
I think you're always going to be that guy unfortunately, you're always going to be that guy who did this or that guy who did that based on what they know you for. So
right.
Some people are going to say, like, oh, yeah, you're that guy that does the poured paint paintings, and somebody else is going to be like, oh, you're the Mark Twain guy.
Right. I mean, yeah, I like that. Yes, certain people found me via certain bodies of work, and certain people only like certain styles of work. One of the biggest factors, the diversity is not just in my art, it's in every aspect of my life. And that's because I'm always aware of my finite existence. And for me, I know inside that there's nothing else after this life. So I want to squeeze every last drop out of this existence.
One of the things that I thought was brilliant about like your Mark Twain series was knowing that you worked in a lot of different mediums, and also I do the same thing myself. I work in several different mediums, and I've run into similar problems with people not knowing what to expect from you. So I've seen that limiting factor firsthand.
Right.
And when I saw that series, I thought that was brilliant, that you took all your different styles of working, and by funneling them into one image and just repeating that image over and over again, you're letting people see the broad range of what you're doing, but you've put it into like a very predictable, repetitive package. So you've kind of captured the best of both worlds.
Exactly. That's something that I've been thinking about. Well, at the time, I had been thinking about it for years. How do I bring the diversity of my style into a single show that's cohesive? I mean, I can't just put together a collage of different pieces and call it a show. It'll look like a retrospective or something. It'll just be cluttered. Finally, one day I thought, you know what? I'll just keep the subject the same. That'll be the unifying factor. Then I can do anything I want as long as I keep the image the same. And it worked. And not only that, like, I didn't plan on it being marketing based, but that kind of happened in the kind of like repetition Warhol type of way, where that repeated image becomes more important than it really is just because you made it so many times, or people just recognize it because they've seen it here, they've seen it there.
You ever think about doing a book of those?
Of the Twains?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about doing a book, or at least maybe a magazine, but where every page is an actual piece of art. So it would be a limited run where everything is handmade. I haven't thought about doing Twain's into a book, but
I mean, there's enough of a body of work there.
Yeah, I think I've painted, collaged, created Twain over 300 times now. So yeah, that would be a decent body of work. I'm not opposed to the idea.
All right, so if there's any publishers listening, send an email. And I know you said the Twain kind of became a marketing thing. How does that relate to like the Easter art hunt? Because that seemed to me to be a little bit more of a marketing-based idea.
The Easter art hunt, I had done the Twain series for, I guess it was going on 2 years. And I thought, you know what, it's time to reinvent myself again, or it's just time to try something else. So a few months before was the Michael Brown shooting, and I wanted to do something that was a part of the healing process, because it wasn't my place to make a statement about the issue, even though everybody was all over social media, in the newspapers, on TV. Everybody had their opinion about the matter. But really, that wasn't my game. It wasn't my business to make an opinion about that. So I was walking around the studio and I saw this sculpture that I had painted of 3 bunnies. I had poured paint over months before. As soon as I looked at that, I thought, Easter egg hunt, I'll do an Easter art hunt. And I thought, it can't be just a regular Easter hunt like in a park with 100 pieces of art. It's got to be amazingly huge. It has to be something that really takes me to the breaking point in how big the project was. So I thought 1,000 pieces, like that's like the smallest really big number.
Right.
1,000. I really had no idea how much work it was going to take to make 1,000 pieces of art. And it ended up taking 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for 5 months to make 1,000 original pieces. And kind of back to the idea of doing good for the community. Another 5 months had passed since I got the idea. And I didn't think it was going to be as big as it was. For me, it's like, okay, let's just see. I'm just going to post these on social media. Like, people were kind of following it, and several people had reached out and said, hey, if you need help hiding these, let me know. And I thought, yeah, but no, it's taken me this long, and I've been kind of suffering mentally with just trying to get these 1,000 pieces done. And this is going to be like my relaxed time. I'm just going to drive around dropping pieces off, and it's going to be relaxing. And then all of a sudden, thousands of people were following me and following the hunt, following me on social media and following me physically around St. Louis and St. Charles counties. And it got intense really, really fast. Sorry, I got off topic a little bit, but
no, it's fine. If I had done an Easter art hunt, people would still be finding those things years later. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing that it took off like that. I don't think something like that would have taken off a few years later. If I hadn't done the Mark Twain series right before that, would the Easter art hunt have even made a splash?
Never underestimate St. Louis's love of free stuff.
Yeah, St. Louis and everybody in general, but no, I get that, especially after doing the hunt.
I have a whole tirade about how because the museums and everything are free here, strangely so, more than other cities. We have so much available to us for little to no cost that I think that there's a built-in expectation sometimes. People drive around for hours at Forest Park looking for the best free parking spot at the zoo. It's pay $5, park your car, go right in. Don't drag the kids around and walk 6 miles. I mean, the walking's good, but
And they're coming from the suburbs where they don't even pay the taxes that pay for the zoo most of the time. So yeah, they're getting it free all the way around.
Got a lot of media attention too for the art hunt, and more so as you did that 2 or 3 years in a row.
2 years in a row. And I almost, in a way, I regret doing it the second year, but I felt like there were things that, since it blew up so fast the first year, that maybe I didn't take it as far as it could have gone. So I thought, well, I'll do it one more year. But there again, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself or typecast myself. So I thought, 2 years, that's it, I'm done. Besides that, immediately following the second year Easter art hunt, I started building my shipping container house.
Yeah.
Which, then that was 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year and 2 weeks.
That's a whole house. I mean, you basically live inside of your own sculpture now.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I thought of it. Stacking up these 40-foot Lego blocks and then carving them out. And yeah, all of the art is mine. I built most of the furniture. I did almost everything myself. For one, for necessity, the banks wouldn't loan to me because it's not a traditional building material. And two, I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to do that. And in doing so, I became the local expert in shipping container homes. Now I'm consulting and building shipping container homes for other people. I mean, I'm projected to start the next container home in Old North neighborhood next month.
You're just doing it as a consultancy. You're not going to be on site that much, or?
Yeah, I'm done building everything by hand. When it comes to construction, I feel that I have more value in my ideas and designs than my physical labor. I'd rather be making things in the studio. So I assembled a team: architect, engineer, a general contractor, and then I consulted with them to kind of show them everything that I learned about the construction process through doing my house. And now I've got a solid team put together.
I mean, you do a lot of, like, you seem to be one of those people too that's like constantly involved in like self-improvement. You seem to have an idea and then you take yourself to those places. You did the what was the obstacle course thing you did?
American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on that show season 7, which was about 3 years ago now.
You just woke up one day and decided you wanted to do it.
Yeah, so one of my buddies, I've always been into fitness, and one of my friends owns Core, which is, they have weightlifting, but they also have like Ninja Warrior style obstacles, parkour obstacles, and it's only a couple blocks from my restaurant, which was only a couple miles from my house. So I started working out there and started training on the obstacles, and he said, "Man, you're really good at this. You should try going on to the show." And I thought, well, yeah, let's do it.
How far did you get? Because I didn't see it.
Unfortunately, I went out on one of the easy obstacles halfway through stage 1. It was the transfer to the cargo ladder, and nailed my fingertips on one of the rungs instead of grabbing them, and it rolled off the tips.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that does that show seems like they're just really in good shape and stuff like that. And I mean, maybe it just comes down to dumb luck on certain things like that. You know, does your hand land in the right place when you jump? And
yeah, and you also have to remember too that a lot of these people make it on the show because of their story. And American Ninja Warrior is an obstacle course competition, but it's also a reality TV show, so they want that storyline in there too.
And you certainly, like restaurant and container houses and all the painting, and yeah, I could see there was definitely a story there.
Yeah, I was hoping that I had the whole package, the story and the athleticism it took to make it far. That's something that I'd like to maybe try again while I'm still in good enough shape. And that's the thing too, like, what is good shape? It depends on what the function is. I've been in many different types of good shape, whether it's long distance running or biking, or powerlifting, bodybuilding, to now obstacle training. And each one, my body has changed form and shape, and with this it's mostly upper body and balance. So you want strong grip strength, you want to be pound for pound strong, so you don't want to be huge. And that's something else I found out. When you see these guys on TV, they don't look tiny, but when you see them in person, most of them are between 120 and 150 pounds. And then I got there and I was like 180, and I looked enormous next to a lot of these other people on the show, which I'm not a huge guy by any means.
What's next for you? Your next big project?
Besides the next container home, and then I just applied to be a speaker at TEDx St. Louis, talking about building a community that centers around the arts, and one that keeps the artists, the people, at the core of the community and protects that investment to keep the community thriving. Think about like all of the cool places in St. Louis and how they got started, or in any other major city. It's like there's an area where property values are really cheap. Artists move in, Then other people move in because it's a cool, hip, happening place because you got artists and musicians and everybody else. And then businesses move in, then developers move in, property values go up, and then like creative locusts, the artists move to another area and it happens all over again.
You're priced out, yeah.
Right. So I want to create community that keeps the rent for the creative people artificially low, to keep them there, to center a community around the arts, performing, music, and visual arts of all sorts. I want to have a portfolio review for those who can qualify to get one of these affordable spaces. I want to include studio space that's built in for the artists, and gallery and theater space for them to show and perform, and then build a community around that idea. And not only that, like a lot of developers, they have money but they don't have an imagination, and anybody can with money can just build a building. I want to build things that are environmentally friendly, sustainable, but also really cool. I want to draw attention to St. Louis, and I want to break the Del Mar divide and go north of Del Mar with this idea. And I think building my house out of containers and then building this next house out of containers in Old North, I'm going to use these two as a launching pad to then do my community. After that, I have designs on a couple of airplanes that I want to construct and fly. I'll build them big enough just for me to fly them, but I'd like to scale them up.
Like experimental aircraft?
Experiment, yeah, they're totally new designs, unlike anything that has ever been built.
That's going to be how you die.
Yeah. Got to go out in fashion, in style. Or with a bang. Hopefully I can get this plane built by the end of 2018. If not, I'll settle for 2019.
Just make it a drone or something like that. You don't need to be in it.
I want to be in it.
It'll land on you, though.
I can be the computer, or I can spend thousands of dollars on a computer to drive it. I just think it would be amazing to fly your own creation. I'm going to build it myself, and I'm working on some inexpensive materials that will be light and strong, since I can't afford carbon fiber, but I think I can do it. I might need to do a Kickstarter for the propulsion, but that's the only thing. I can build everything else. And the other plane, so there's two plane designs. One needs a motor. The other one is going to be like the Red Bull Flugtag, where they go off the aircraft carrier.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, one will be human powered. So I'm hoping I can build one that not only just glides, but you can sustain flight just with human power. I think I can do it.
All right, Zach, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me today.
Hey, thanks for stopping by, Dan.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Artistic Mission. If you enjoyed what you heard, we encourage you to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Artistic Mission is available on the following platforms: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Libsyn, TuneIn, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. You can also find us listed along with dozens of other great local St. Louis podcasts at stlvernacular.com. Special thanks to our guest Zack Smithey for taking the time to speak with us. You can find full show notes for this episode, including artist photos and links, at danjabor.com/podcast. Lastly, if you appreciate what we're doing here and you want to support the show, there's a few ways you can do that. The best and most helpful option is to visit the shop section of danjabor.com and purchase some art. Both prints and originals are available at prices for any budget, and they can be quickly shipped directly to your door. Or if money is tight, you can always help spread the word about the show. Social media posts and shared links are a great way to grow local awareness of the show. Subscribing, and especially reviewing the show on whatever platform you use, helps us get higher ratings and grow our audience worldwide. From everyone here at Open Door Studios, we thank you, our fans, for all your generous support. I'm your host, Dan Jabor, signing off until next time.